They used to call him the Storm King. Miles Harrington, the man who built Atlas Meridian Group and froze it solid. Nobody laughed on the 48th floor. People breathed quietly like they were sharing oxygen with a tiger. First week on the job, someone pointed at the corner office and whispered, "He hasn't smiled in 10 years. Then they looked me up and down, thrift store blazer curls, I didn't fully tame coffee in a paper cup, and added, "You'll last a month." That morning, the elevator moved like a slow confession. When the doors slid open, the place looked like a museum of money glass walls, stone floors, jackets too tight with ambition. I walked toward those double doors anyway. A woman with a tablet, page chief of staff, slid in front of me like a goalie. "Ms. Morales, he's reviewing earnings. We don't disturb him." I smiled. "Good news. I'm not we. I'm me." I pushed through. Miles was at his desk, a slab of walnut big enough to land a helicopter. He didn't look up. He didn't have to. The air knew who he was. His suit was the kind that had opinions. I opened my mouth to introduce myself, and the lid on my cup gave up on life. A brown arc leapt, kissed the edge of his paper stack, and spread like a guilty rumor. Page choked. Somewhere behind me, a guy made the sign of the cross. "Great," I blurted, padding with napkins. "I just christened the ship. She'll sail far." Miles finally looked at me. Gray eyes, steady, unreadable. He opened a drawer, pulled out a linen handkerchief, and held it out. I took it. He didn't flinch, didn't scold, just said in a voice that felt like cooled steel, "Name. Lena. Morales. Your assistant. Temporary, unless you hate me already. Then, extremely temporary." A breath thick as fog passed between us. He tapped the handkerchief once, like a judge tapping the bench. "Don't spill again." "Statistically, I will," I said, "but I'm also good company." One eyebrow moved a millimeter. "For this building, it was an earthquake." "We'll see," he said, and turned back to the numbers. "People love to tell you who you are. They told me I was loud, too bright, not corporate. They told me people like me don't make it past reception. The thing about being underestimated is, it's quiet fuel, you burn it slow. So I started small. Every morning I left a little index card on his desk, 3 lines, black ink. "Remember to inhale on page 3 of the budget. Breaking smiling still legal in Boston. Warning staring at spreadsheets turns them into enemies." He didn't react, but he didn't throw them out either. He stacked them crisp and neat like he was building a tiny wall he wasn't ready to admit existed. Meetings were the real test. Atlas Meridian worship charts. Executives lined up slides like soldiers and begged the bar graph gods for mercy. I wasn't supposed to be in the boardroom, but I walked in anyway with a yellow legal pad and a bag of cinnamon candies. Grant Ellison, the COO, cleared his throat. "Ms. Morales' support staff waits outside." "Perfect," I said. I'm not very supportive. A couple of people coughed into their sleeves to hide smiles. Grant didn't. Miles, well, he didn't blink. The presentation started bullet points marching toward the grave. I sketched a little cartoon in the margins, Miles on a spreadsheet throne wearing a crown shaped like a calculator, and slid it to the analyst next to me. Shoulders shook. A pen clattered. Miles heard it all. "Something amusing?" he asked, and the room snapped back into ice. Only the part I said, leaning forward, where we call a cost overrun a timing adjustment. That's adorable. A few heads jerked like people bracing for thunder. Miles looked at me, then at the numbers, then back at me. A sliver of something crossed his face. Attention, maybe curiosity, and he said, "Continue." It wasn't a laugh. It wasn't a smile. But the sky cracked just enough for light to consider the idea of coming through. By week 2, the building had learned my rhythm. I replaced his afternoon espresso with real cocoa cinnamon on top, a marshmallow that bobbed like a tiny buoy. He eyed it. "I don't drink sugar." "Your soul does," I said, and slid it closer. He sipped. No reaction. Then a second sip, almost a secret. I pretended not to notice, but I did, and so did the assistants loitering near the door, pretending to sort paper clips while they eavesdropped like champs. Friday night was the Aurora Foundation dinner, Atlas Meridian's annual fundraiser, a room full of checks wearing tuxedos. Traditionally, Miles showed up, said nothing, left early, and donations flowed anyway. This time, Paige handed me a black pass at 5 p.m. Don't make it about you, she warned. I showed up in navy, not black because life needs color. The ballroom glittered. People parted when Miles walked in. He moves like gravity, calm and inescapable. He offered me his arm without looking down like it was nothing. It felt like everything. At the table, a donor cooed, "Mr. Harrington, your watch." I leaned in. If one more person flirts with that timepiece, I'm auctioning it for the cause. A few people choked on their bubbles. Grant's jaw set. Miles cut his steak and said, "If it raises 7 figures, it's yours." "Careful," I whispered. "I'm persuasive." The orchestra slid into a waltz. Couples drifted out. Miles stayed put. Of course he did. "Come on," I said. "One song. We'll look bad together. That's team building." "I don't dance," he said, and his voice made it sound like a legal precedent. "Me neither," I said, tugging his sleeve, which is why it'll be perfect. We stepped onto the floor. He moved with that controlled precision he uses to dismantle a balance sheet. I didn't. My heel found his shoe. I winced. Okay, on the upside now I can say I left a mark on Miles Harrington. It slipped out. Too fast. Too ridiculous. He stared at me, and for a heartbeat the room held its breath. Then it happened, a sound rich and low and startlingly human. He laughed. Not a polite exhale, a laugh. The quartet wobbled. Conversation stopped. Somewhere Grant's eye twitched in the wild. Miles tried to pull it back like he'd broken protocol, but it was too late. We were already in the new world. Monday. Someone on the internet had posted Storm King laughs, economy safe. The lobby hummed with rumors as we walked in. I handed him his coffee. "You're trending," I said. "Don't worry." I told them you're an android learning emotions. He took the cup neutral as a courtroom. "Fireable offense," he said. "But accurate," I said, and he didn't argue. That afternoon in a finance review, my pen lunged off the table and clanged against his chair. Old Miles would have frozen the room. New Miles glanced over and said, "Dry as granite, gravity's been taking meetings without you." I stood pointed at him like a cheap lawyer. "Ladies and gentlemen, sarcasm. From the throne." The room broke quiet, chuckles, shoulders loosening as if we'd finally cracked a window. From there, it spread. Analysts started asking real questions instead of nodding at numbers they didn't understand. Designers laughed at their own terrible mock-ups and then made better ones. An intern pitched a fix that saved $250,000 in logistics, and nobody told her to circle back later. Miles didn't get warm. He's not oatmeal, but the frost melted. He started tossing one-liners that were more blade than hug, and somehow that was exactly what the place needed permission to be human, while still being excellent. Late one night, I was balanced on the edge of his desk, building a wobbling tower out of paper clips between emails. He watched me like a man observing a small, chaotic weather system. That, he said, is the least productive thing I've seen this quarter. Correction, I said, nudging the top piece into place. It's the least productive thing you've let happen. The tower leaned. He reached out and steadied it with a fingertip. We both froze. The paper clips swayed, found their balance, and held. "I should fire you," he said. "You won't," I said, meeting his eyes. "Who else would remind you you're not a machine?" He let out that almost laugh, the one he pretends is a cough, and folded his hands. A beat passed. Then he tapped the desk twice like a knock. I squinted. No way. Knock, knock. He kept his face perfectly straight. "Who's there?" "Me. Obviously," I said, laughing. He waited, then deadpan. "Me, who?" "Me. Who is very good at my job." That, he said, and the smile finally climbed all the way to his eyes, is inconveniently true. Here's the thing. I didn't expect winning can look like people staying late because they want to, not because they're scared. It can sound like an analyst snorting at a dumb joke then finding a smarter line in the model. It can feel like walking into a building that used to press on your lungs and realizing you can breathe. It wasn't perfect. Grant cornered me after a leadership huddle. "You're blurring lines," he said. "The board is watching. They think you've domesticated him." I stared at him. "You think he's a wolf?" "I think he said power needs distance." Maybe I said it needs courage in the room more. He didn't smile. Men like Grant don't like new weather. Weeks passed. Profits ticked up. Turnover slowed. People used the words we and together without sounding like a commercial. Miles still had edges, but they were useful ones, the kind that cut through excuses instead of people. Do I think I saved him? No. He saved himself. I just held up a mirror, wrote a few stupid notes, made bad cocoa into a ritual, and told the truth out loud until it sounded normal. One evening, the floor was mostly dark. Real dark. Not the old kind. I was perched on his desk again, legs swinging, looking at the city, throwing stars at the river. He loosened his tie and said like it was the most ordinary sentence in the world. You changed the place. We changed it, I said. You showed me the lock. I picked it. He smiled, easy now. Reckless. Brave, I said, grinning back. The elevator chimed. Footsteps faded. I grabbed my bag. I'm starving. You're buying noodles. I don't recall. You'll recall when we get there, I said, tugging his sleeve. They have terrible lighting and excellent soup. It'll keep you humble. We walked out together. Somewhere in some board chat, someone probably typed the words optics and boundary. Somewhere a donor probably missed the old statue who made them feel important by being colder than them. And maybe they're not wrong. Maybe power does need distance, and maybe laughter makes some people careless. Or maybe with the right hands on the wheel, it makes them brave enough to tell the truth faster, fix what's broken sooner, and treat people like they matter while they do it. You tell me. Is a leader less powerful when they laugh or finally strong enough to choose it and mean it? If this story hit something in you, if you've seen a workplace ruled by fear or watched it thaw, drop your take below. What's professional? What's just control dressed in a tie? And when does breaking the ice become breaking the rules? Like, subscribe and tell me the moment you knew a boss was human or the moment they proved they weren't. I read every single comment.